So the first trend that I had written about was the rise of native plants and nativars, um, which is a new, somewhat new term. And I think some people may not know. I know from my own experience when I meet with a lot of gardeners, they're not really sure what cultivars are and what nativars. So I thought I would just put up this slide talking about the definition of what a nativar is. And whenever I do my presentations, I normally don't read off of this slide. I don't like to put a lot of words, but sometimes in this presentation I have because I think it's important. And so this is the definition of a nativar. And they can either be found naturally growing, like a sport. It can be naturally growing in the wild, but usually it involves man-made tweaking of a native plant, which has different traits about them. And it could be brighter flowers, or it could be more colorful, more compact size, etc. And so what I wanted to just show a couple, there's so many examples out there, but cone flowers is a really common um, category of plants where the native, this is just one of the natives on the left there, the pale pink, the Echinacea pallida, and then all the beautiful colors you also see in the nurseries, like this bright orange, frankly scarlet. There's a million of them. There's even the double flowered varieties. There's so many involved that are nativars. And this is just a photo I took this summer of actually in Lake Tahoe. This gardener had planted a million coneflowers, and it looks to me like a lot of those are the nativars, where they've been tweaked for the brighter colors. Another category is the milkweed, right? Our native Asclepias versus some like this tropical one, the brightly colored tropical one, which is so easily found in nurseries. This is a very interesting one, and where I did put in more links in the notes, because there is a lot of research that has been done on the tropical. Is it better or worse than the native? And it's coming out pretty solid that it's not good for monarchs for a whole host of reasons. And those links in there support that. But not all cultivars are bad. They're not. And this is the other slide that has a fair amount of text on it. But I think it's important because it shows the pros and the cons. Like for me as a designer, I respond to what my clients are looking for and when they want advice and they want a certain look. And so I could talk about natives all day long. They might really not want a lot of natives for a variety of reasons. They've had bad luck with them or whatever. So if you look on the pros at the bottom, it's bridging the gap. For me, that's a great way to sneak some in that look and do really well in the garden, to try and teach people like, hey, listen, you can have natives that do really well and that aren't high maintenance and that you'll love in your garden. So it can kind of help to start to convert some people over into researching natives.
Rebecca,
Yeah.
Denise chimed in, are nativars a way to generate new income from old standbys? Is that part of it, or what do you think?
Are you asking me or Rebecca?
Rebecca, or either one.
What was your question? Generate income?
Is our nativars a way to generate new income from old standbys? Aren't they actually to try to solve a purpose in the garden, right?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, breeders, are trying to sell their plants, but um, I think they're doing it to make it more appealing to people. Because, for example, a lot of natives sometimes get pretty rangy and pretty large. So if they're making them more compact, they'll fit into smaller residential gardens a lot easier. So they're doing it a lot of times to solve some problems, which are keeping people away from natives, is what I see.
Denise, you were commenting the other day about you're a fan, right?
Well, I'm a fan of, actually, I'm not a fan of the term nativar. No offense, Rebecca. I
Oh,
just,
I didn't make it up, so you're not hurting my
yeah,
feelings.
no, but I think it's a great, bridging the gap is a great piece because a lot of people don't, they typically wouldn't buy anything that said native on it.
Mhm.
But there's some, especially in California, there's some just stunning, beautiful, beautiful varieties that have been selected from the wild that there's a lot of hikers that maybe will see, oh, that's a beautiful, it's much bigger, it's much, and then the plant is more compact. And there's all these reasons why a native gardener hiker would maybe collect some seed or collect some cuttings, not very many, but a few, and bring them back and propagate them. And that's how, for California natives, I think that's most of what we have here. I think in other states, they're more bred for a specific trait, like smaller size is a huge thing. And they also come with maybe attractive new names that people can relate to better. So I think it is a bridge, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And it's been brought up in the questions. There was a note about Mount Cuba.
Mhm.
Not all nativars are going to have the same benefit as a native in every case, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And well, I'll go on to the next slide here. I had taken this slide. I hope they're okay. It's from the Ecological Landscaping Alliance, ecolandscaping.org. And what it does, just looking at this, you can see the native plant on yellow in the left, and then the cultivars on the right. And that's kind of saying, yeah, you can see how some of them are more compact, some of them are more colorful, different sizes, etc. But what the next two slides I'll show are that they're not all the same. And it's really interesting. So much more research needs to be done on this, which will take many, many years. So the Mount Cuba research is doing one. This Ecological Landscaping Alliance is another. Doug Tallamy is conducting research a lot. And so there's different things to look at. It's super interesting. So this slide here, for example, what it's showing is the different pollinators and how often they visit the straight species versus some of the cultivars. And it looks pretty similar, right? Like if you look at that first set there, which we'll just look at here, under the red columbine, you can see that with the red columbine and its cultivars, the small bees and flies that visit are fairly similar. So there's not a huge amount of variation happening on this particular graph. But if you go and you look at this particular graph that they've put up, you can see that on the native species, what they're calling the wild type, it's like so many more pollinators are visiting it versus the other cultivars. So there's like which pollinators are interested in these plants, how often they're visiting. And this particular group here, what they did is they took, they've used regular gardeners like ourselves, they call them the citizen scientists, and they've asked them to plant certain plants and to write daily notes from 3 different areas around the country, Chicago, Denver, and San Diego, and do the comparisons that way. And so these are their initial findings, and it's a few years old by now, but you can see like on the very last section there, the New England aster, how so many more pollinators visit it versus the purple dome. Like it's a huge difference. So in a nutshell, a ton more research needs to be done in this aspect, whether or not, they're still good for pollinators, how much better is the straight species than the others, etc. So
Rebecca,
that's,
Helen has chimed in here. I'm a botanist by education. These are
yeah.
my thoughts on nativars. If the
Uh-huh.
cultivated change does not negatively impact the pollen and nectar production, it is fine. A more compact plant, as an example.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes leaf color will impact the leaf eater insects in a negative way, red leaves, for example.
Yes, yes.
So it really can be down to the plant level.
Yes. And I read that when I was kind of reading these studies. She's absolutely right about the leaf color. So I personally love using maroon and burgundy leafed plants in my designs. So if I choose a nativar that's got a red leaf, you know, I'm not doing a great thing there. Like that study just proved, like a lot of the pollinators don't like that. So those are great points.
To the audience out there, could you put in the Q&A is rate yourself on a 1 to 5 on your understanding of nativars and the positives and negatives. That'd be really helpful. And we'll sort of see where everybody's out on
Yeah.
that. And then Rebecca, you've got a lot of great resources on that, but this is not a slam dunk topic.
Yeah. Mm-mm, mm-mm. But I guess at the end of the day, like Denise and I both kind of said, if it bridges the gap and it gets more people that are to kind of turn a blind eye towards natives, gets them looking at them, you know, that's a positive. So if we can just kind of make sure we go down the right road as we continue this in the next few years and make good decisions with the cultivars being bred and released to
Yeah.
the public.
I would add one more thing. I think it depends on what your goals are. I think like if I was designing a habitat restoration project, I would not use any of the name varieties at all. It would all be wild plants, which can actually be really hard to find except through specialist nurseries. So depends on where you're at and what your goals are.
I agree.
All right. Well, we better move on, huh?
Yes, yes. But yeah, that was a biggie.